The Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has accused the US of violating the nuclear deal it signed with his country. In response, he's ordered officials to make plans to develop nuclear technology for use in Iranian ships. Mr. Rouhani has also instructed his foreign ministry to make a legal complaint to the international committee that oversees the nuclear agreement. The president regards the US as having breached the deal when its lawmakers voted recently to extend sanctions on Iran. Let's talk now to Emad Kiyaei, who's a policy advisor at the American-Iranian Council. Does the Iranian president have a point, Emad, that America broke this deal?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. Yes, it's sort of a tit for tat. I mean, as you know, the Iranian and the world powers reached a nuclear deal early this year. In January, went into implementation. And part of the bargain was that sanctions will be removed at the UN, EU, and United States level, which were related to its nuclear program. The extension of sanctions, as you mentioned in your report, by 1990 in the Senate, basically paved the way for another decade of U.S. unilateral sanctions on Iran. And this is the point where Rouhani wants to highlight where there is a discrepancy in terms of interpretation of the JCPOA that is being dictated on both sides, but also point to the fact that if the United States is not going to do its end of the bargain, Iran will also push the envelope on their side.
Why has the United States decided to be in breach of this deal and give Iran the excuse to develop its nuclear industry?
Well, it's interesting because, as you know, the Congress is Republican-led, and most of these sanctions are being spearheaded through a Republican-dominated Congress and House of Representatives. So it doesn't come as a surprise that this is happening. And of course, the anti-Iranian rhetoric is being pretty viral within the U.S. election campaigns by both parties. And of course, this is now being played out in policy.
It's all in the wording, though, in the linguistics, isn't it? Because there are some analysts that say that it's unclear whether there's been a violation of the agreement. And I wonder whether Iran has slightly jumped the gun without making that point clear.
Dalton, this is actually a very good point. Interestingly, it's a case on both sides, because from even the spokesperson at the White House, Josh Earnest, today alluded to the point that Iran building nuclear-powered vessels does not violate the nuclear deal. Under the nuclear agreement and on international law, Iran is permitted to actually build nuclear-powered vessels. The problem is enrichment, and this is the crux of the matter. For it to fuel these vessels, it requires to enrich very high levels, which can be either used for energy-related issues or for weaponization, and this is where the problem lies. So technically, both sides are not breaking the letter of the JCPOA, but as both sides would allude to, it's destroying the spirit of the deal.
Exactly. That is the bonkers thing about this. We all know what this deal was about. On the one hand, that Iran would mothball its nuclear technology in terms of the military use for its nuclear technology. And on the other hand, America would lift sanctions on Iran. If you're saying that the deal and its wording doesn't guarantee either, what was the point of it?
Well, it takes a lot to negotiate this, and we have to remember this is a multilateral approach. It includes other world powers, permanent members of the Security Council, and Germany. So it's not just a United States-Iran deal. What is happening is also domestic politics. In the United States, Trump and Hillary Clinton, in their campaigns that I've alluded to, really highlighted how each side's perspective on the nuclear deal. In Iran, Rouhani is entering the last 6 months of his first term, and he is aiming to be re-elected. So domestic politics and the sort of like the expectations that this deal will revamp and bring prosperity to the whole country has come short for the ordinary Iranian. And this
is also a major component to be abreast of when we're discussing Rouhani's action today. We're back to where we were before this deal was signed. Iran still suffers sanctions, and it still wants to develop the military use of its nuclear technology. We're back to square one, essentially.
Not really. I want to really emphasize that the JCPOA, or the Iran nuclear deal, does put into place incredible intrusive inspections and monitoring, which is still in place. Let's not jump the gun either by saying that this deal is over. No, it has still been abided by the Iranian side. The IAEA, the nuclear watchdog of the United Nations, repeatedly has said that Iran has kept to its end of bargain, and so have the United Nations Security Council through removal of their sanctions, and the EU. So in this sense, this is more posturing, in my view, and also to entertain and also satisfy the domestic concerns and limitations of what they had expected from the nuclear deal. So it's a multifaceted reasoning behind it, but I do not want to put too much emphasis on the fact that this could derail the deal. I rather would say that this is something that should be discussed and further evaluated through the experts level and the councils which are put into place within the nuclear deal, which allows for these discussions to happen without it all breaking down.
And very briefly, Emad, when President Trump takes office, is it likely, or is the misinterpretation of this deal likely to continue?
Unfortunately, with what we've seen President Trump surround himself with, these are mostly anti-Iranian hardliners or warmongers, from his national security advisor, Michael Flynn, to his Take for United Nations ambassador and deputy, and of Secretary of State Bolton. So these are all pretty much against the deal hardliners in Washington. I'm worried that the same will happen on the Iranian front. And of course, all of this has implications for the region as a whole, with multiple conflicts that are going on, and how this interplay of regional power, international negotiations plays out just way beyond the nuclear issue and spills over into Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and what we've seen today in Aleppo, which has been a shame for humanity.
Emad, thank you. Emad Kiyaei, their policy advisor at the American Iranian Council.